Hi, good morning, everyone. This is Michelle Soccer. I'm the Director of Sponsorships and Special Events here at the Chamber of Commerce of the Palm Beaches. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. As we find ourselves in a challenging situation, I've been inspired by being able to talk to local business owners and all kinds of professionals like Christine and Christopher, who are speakers today, and I am continuously inspired by the creativity, resilience, and innovation that people are capable of and demonstrating right now in a challenging time. So I hope you're going to hear, I don't hope, I know you're going to hear great ideas today from Christopher and Christine. And I would like to just take care of a housekeeping item before I formally introduce them. If everyone could make sure that you are muted, because as all of us are working from home, we have the interesting challenges of pets and children and all kinds of things in the background, and our doorbells ring with deliveries and things like that. So if you could keep your phone muted, that would be appreciated. Also, you will have a chance at the end to ask questions, and how I would like to do that is for you to hold them till the end, and then we will open it up. But instead of doing that verbally, I'm asking people to send them to me. You have the capability of chatting with me, and if you click on the arrow next to your name, there's all kinds of things that come up, and one of them is the ability to chat. So if you could send your questions to me, I'm listed as the Chamber of Commerce of the Palm Beaches instead of Michelle. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. So I would like to formally introduce our speakers today for our topic, employees and employers now working from home, considerations for cybersecurity, setting up your home office, confidentiality, policies, and security best practices. So one of our two speakers today is Christopher Hopkins, who is a trustee here at the Chamber. He's an attorney, and he works with McDonald Hopkins, which is a business advisory and advocacy law firm. He's a circuit civil mediator. He's an arbitrator and is admitted to practice law in Florida, New York, and Washington, D.C. with more than 20 years of trial experience. He's represented business and families in the areas of commercial construction, legal, medical malpractice, nursing home, and probate litigation. His practice involves a wide range of emerging technologies such as cybersecurity, data breach, e-discovery, internet crimes, privacy, and social media discovery. His work in these areas permits him to protect client data, as well as effectively target discovery and investigation of other parties. Christopher has a law degree from Tulane, a master's degree from Wesley Theological Seminary, and a bachelor's from University of Richmond. So, and now I want to introduce Christine. Christine Vanderpool is our second speaker. She is currently a vice president of IT security for Florida Crystals. As you know, Florida Crystals is the world's largest sugarcane refiner and the home of household names such as Domino Sugar, C&H, Redpath, Tate Lyle Sugars, and of course, Florida Crystals. So she has an interesting story, as many of us do. It was never her plan to have a career in IT, but she has a proven track record as a security leader for almost 20 years now. She's spent her career in a variety of security and IT roles, including security leadership for Molson Coors Brewing Company and Kaiser Permanente. In addition, she writes for several online security blogs and magazines and is published in the Complete Compliance and Ethics Manual. Christine was the 2019 Cybersecurity Woman Leader of the Year and the 2020 recipient of Global Technology Executives Who Matter Award. So I'd like to welcome our speakers, and at this point I'm going to hand the meeting over to Christopher Hopkins and Christine. So Christopher, if you could say hello and we'll get started.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I just want to first make sure everyone can hear me. Michelle, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. So we're going to spend the next 45 minutes or so talking about cybersecurity, specifically as it relates to everyone working remotely from home. But at the same time, a lot of these issues and concerns and hopefully practices that you'll walk away with are also going to be useful just in our daily lives when we get back to work. And we're going to try today to impart to you some ideas that you can use in your business, train your employees, and also just use at home as well, just to protect your devices and your privacy. Christine?
Good morning, everyone. It's very nice to have everyone on the call this morning, and I really hope this is a interesting and valuable talk as we walk through this information. So,
okay. Michelle, can you fast forward us to slide number 4, please? There we go. All right, so a couple of weeks ago, actually a couple of months ago, I received this email in my inbox, and it was 8/12, and I believe it was on a Saturday morning. And as you can see, it was regarding a request, and it says, "Can you help me with a quick task, please?" From Sean Riley, who's someone I know. Michelle, can you go to the next slide? Sean Riley is the president of our law firm. And as you might imagine, Michelle, you can go to the next slide. When you get an email from someone in your law firm at 8:10 or 8:12 on a Saturday morning regarding a quick task, please, you're probably inclined to kind of jump on that and see what's going on. But there was a couple of things about this email that struck me. The first of all was it was regarding a request, and I hadn't sent anything to him with the title request, so for him to reply about that seemed a little odd. And the other thing that's odd is, quite frankly, lawyers don't use words like task too often. So this struck me as a little odd. So Michelle, go to the next slide. So I clicked on his name on the email, and lo and behold, as you can see on the bottom there, it was coming from a different email address. Even though the name said Sean Riley at the top, it clearly wasn't him. Michelle, go to the next email. And then, excuse me, the next slide after that, there you go. And then if I had replied and I had paid attention, you would have been able to see there as well that this was obviously not the Sean Riley I knew. Next slide. What this was a social engineering, or what's called a spear phishing attack. And the people who are sending out these emails are trying to trick you into believing, into impersonating someone else. And in this case, what they probably did was they probably went on the McDonald Hopkins website, saw my name, Christopher Hopkins, obviously, and then saw that we had a president of the firm and said, hey, let's see if we can get these two into a conversation. And ultimately, they would have asked me, they would have said something along the lines of, hey, Christopher, this is fake Sean. I'm out of the office. I need you to send me the credit card number, or can you get me the password for something, or there's a client who has an emergency. Can you transfer some funds? And it doesn't have to be from a president of a business down to a principal. It can also just be from someone to an assistant or two colleagues or what have you. But the purpose is to fool people or into transferring funds or giving access to this fake person so that they can begin to get more and more access, maybe do a ransomware attack, something along those lines. Next slide. So our first thought here, our first message is you need to remind employees, and I would say this frequently, you need to remind people to be wary of impersonations and fake emails. Next slide. Christine?
sure, there's a number of things that you can do. In most email applications, there's also the ability to put on a banner or a warning. So that was a really great example of somebody trying to impersonate an internal employee, sending it to another internal employee. However, if mail comes from the outside, you can put a banner on it warning someone. So that's a really good indication that if somebody is pretending to be an internal employee, but yet the banner tells you the email's coming from the outside, you know that there's a high likelihood that that is an impersonation email. So that's one thing you can consider to do to raise awareness. Now, there are studies or people who will say over time, people become blasé to those or stop paying attention to those. But I believe if you change them up, you change the coloring, the wording, the font, and things of that nature, then it'll still stimulate the person's visual recognition of the email, and it'll still trigger maybe a second thought. There's also a lot of other things that you need to put in place, such as various password protections. I'm a bigger fan of more complex passwords rather than constantly changing passwords, because what we've seen when people require someone to change their password every 30 days, 60 days, even 90 days, the people just use the same password and just put a different number at the end or a different special character at the end. So they're not really changing their passwords, and the bad guys, they know this. And when they run various scripts, automated scripts to try and find out what valid passwords go with what IDs, if you've ever had a compromised password in the past, then they know that there's a high likelihood that you're still using that same base password with just some minor variations. So that's why it's really important to encourage password phrases, things that people would never guess. But if you only make somebody change it every once in a while, they can have a very complex password because they're only, using that one for a longer period of time, and also encouraging people not to reuse passwords, not to use passwords that they use at home for things that they use at work. Also, if you haven't done this already and you're using cloud, especially if you're using cloud infrastructure and cloud applications like Office 365, or Google Cloud, and things along those nature, it's really important to implement multi-factor authentication, because cloud is great. It allows anywhere, anytime, any device access. But what that means is once your password is compromised, the bad guys can get in from anywhere, anytime, and any device. So again, the goal there is that if you require several different factors of authentication, then you can verify that the person is who they say they are, since you can no longer control the virtual four walls, if you will, of where they're coming from, right? Because you don't own that cloud application. Microsoft owns that cloud application, or Google. So you have to do the secondary factor, at least secondary, if not more than that, to ensure someone is who they say they are. So those are just a few other things. The other thing I always tell people is back to the email scams, and if you believe that you've received an email from someone pretending to be someone else, the most critical piece of information you can tell your end user community is not to engage or respond to that person via the reply to that email, because if they've overtaken someone's account, or they've spoofed it to make it look like they are, and you start asking them questions to verify they are who they say they are, well, you're doing it via the same attack method that they're trying to get at you. So pick up the phone, call the person, ask them, did you send this to me? Or start a brand new email in the known email address you have for them and ask them if they sent you an email. Or IM them. Now, especially now in today's world, we should all be doing a lot of communications, most likely over instant messenger. So ask people, but don't ask them via the method they first contacted you.
Okay, Michelle, next slide. So we're going to switch to a different topic, or a slightly different topic. I'm going to give you a different example, and this is called a phishing scam or phishing emails. Michelle, next slide. Let's see, we're in March. So in February, I got 3 cases within a week that were all the same type of attack. And quite frankly, for the moment, they came in so quickly and they were all so similar. I was wondering if it was the same group of people, but the ultimate outcome was this is just very, very common, and just coincidentally, we got a bunch of cases at the same time. So this is a real life recent example. And in this case, it was a real estate transaction. And so there was obviously a buyer and a seller and a couple of agents involved. And this was an email that was sent. So, you know, the deal was set up. Everyone was communicating by email, the buyer and the seller and the agents. And in the midst of all of this, the closing agent, in this case, the fake closing agent, sent an email to the buyer saying, as you can see, hey, we're close to close. You need to have the cash to wire to the trust account today. Now, there's a couple of very subtle issues in this particular email that, of course, in retrospect, we can kind of recognize and go, aha, you know, you should have spotted this. But these are some telltale signs. So if you get a weird email and you start seeing little things like I'm about to point out, you might consider that this is a fake email. And in this case, first of all, closing agent, whatever number at gmail.com was not the email of the closing agent, okay? And in this case, the email went, there was 2 buyers, and it only went to them. There's a few issues of some poor grammar in this email. There's a capital Y on the U. That sentence, if you kind of read it, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The other thing too is this came at a moment where there really was no urgency to wire the money. And really that was probably the one hallmark that the recipient, and here in this case the buyer, should have picked up on was, why am I being told to wire cash so early in this process as if, you know, that it's urgent to do it today without delay? Next slide. And like I said, in this case, the email had changed. Now, the ironic thing, and Christina just mentioned this, Michelle, if you go to the next slide, the thieves had spoofed the agent's email literally down to the point that they had cut and pasted in the signature block, which actually had included the warning, hey, due to cyber threats prior to wiring money, please call our office to verbally verify. And, you know, the problem with a lot of warnings that we get on emails is after a while we begin to kind of ignore them. And in this case, that's exactly what happened. Michelle, next slide. So the key question in all of this was, how did the thieves figure out that this transaction was going on at all? How did someone just jump in the middle of an email conversation and send an email saying, hey, I'm pretending to be your closing agent, please send money? Next slide. And this is called a phishing attack. And again, this sort of like the Sean Riley example we started with. This is a social engineering attack where someone gets in, gets some login credentials, and then begins to masquerade or impersonate someone else. Next slide, please. So you probably get emails like the next couple I'm going to show you. In this case, here's an email that says, hey, we need you to renew your password. Please click the following. And it comes from a school. And in that case, you know, students would be probably pretty quick to click on that and change their password. In this case, it would take you to a fake website that would look almost exactly like whatever the university site is. But when you type in your password and then you type in your new password, it's going to the thieves, and you've just told them 2 things. 1, you've given them what your password is. And 2, as Christine pointed out, since we tend to reuse passwords and you're giving them a quote unquote new password, you've probably just told them, hey, here's another password I frequently use. So from there, the thieves can not only log on to that person's university password, but then they can try those passwords and other varieties or variations of that password on other accounts to see if they can get into those person's different accounts and begin to be them across all platforms. The other thing is, since we save emails and you can obviously see your sent and deleted emails, you can see what kind of transactions or business that person is in, and then jump in and send out a spoof email and begin to see if you can get someone to wire money in a different direction. Michelle, next slide. Here's an email I got a handful of weeks ago. This was from someone spoofing to be Netflix, sending an email saying, "Hey, I need to go change my billing because, you know, God forbid we lose our Netflix stream," and they want to then see if I'll input either my username and password or even just give them a new credit card number. Next slide. A classic example of this phishing scam was this Celebgate a couple of years ago, and you may recall this, where some celebrities were being fooled, and then somehow the thieves were getting access to their photographs. And I'll show you how they were able to do that. If you go to the next slide. The first step is the thieves would send an email again that looks a lot like this that says, "Hey, your Apple ID, you need to change your password and you're locked out." So we've created some urgency. We've created an email that looks legitimate, and then there's a click now that would take you to a fake website where the person would enter their information. And you think to yourself, well, okay, fine, they have that person's Apple information. How do they get to a celebrity's photographs? Michelle, next slide. Well, what happens is now that they've got your Apple ID and Apple password, they can go onto the iCloud. And a lot of people back up, as you can see on this particular page, their photographs to the cloud. And then they can rummage through your photographs and then go back to the person and say, "Hey, by the way, I have all of your embarrassing photographs." You know, they then extort them for money or something along those lines. Next slide. So you need to protect your employees and, quite frankly, yourself from these phishing scams, particularly from working from home, because I find a lot of people are working on something, and we do this at the office too, but I think also from home is, you know, we sort of go away from the emails a little bit, and then we come back and then we see a bunch of them, and we're trying to kind of grind through our emails very quickly, and we may not be all that attentive to these kinds of issues, and we may be like, "Oh, I got to get back on my Apple account, or I got to get back on my Google account, or I want to have my Netflix stream cut off because the kids are upstairs watching cartoons," or something along those lines. Frequently, please remind your employees and keep it in your mind to avoid these kinds of scams. Next slide. I'm going to let Christine walk through these real quickly, but let me just kind of cut to the bottom one first, and that is, no one should be writing checks or sending money without verbal confirmation while we're all working remotely. That needs to be the number one lesson, probably from our morning together, but in general. Do not send money based on emails or requests or what have you. There has to be some verbal confirmation before money goes out the door. That is the reason why these scams are in existence, and you need to protect yourself, starting with your cash. Christine?
Yes. One thing I'd also like to make sure that everyone thinks about and is informing your staff and your employees about is that when they receive an email, a phishing email, sometimes they don't ask for data. They just simply want you to click on something. And that can also have some catastrophic outcomes to it, depending on what occurs. So sometimes when you click on that link, it takes you to a website, and that is doing what we in the cyber world call ET phone home, because we like to be a little funny. And what it's really doing is beaconing home and then getting its instructions from the malicious website of what to do next. Oftentimes that's look for a vulnerability on the system that the user is using at that moment so that they have a way to get in. The way I like to explain this is that cyber attacks actually happen just like a home invasion happens, right? So the bad guys are out there in their white van doing what we call reconnaissance, and they're watching how you interact, your comings, your goings, what doors you go out, what windows you leave open at night. And they're looking for those because that's their way in. Same thing in a cyber attack. You know, they're constantly doing reconnaissance, they're researching your company, they're researching who works for that company via LinkedIn and other, directories, other publications, figuring out who might be a good target, watching who communicates with who and how. And then they build that profile on you and they know how to attack you rather easily. And so that's where they send this email. And then once you click on it and it gets those instructions, like I said, it's looking for, did you not do the latest Microsoft or iOS patches on your machine? Is that a way that I can remote into your computer? And once I take over your computer, I can do endless amounts of things with it. Now, in larger organizations where we have a lot of cyber protections and cyber tools, we can do a lot of things to block those. We have tools that block known malicious sites every day, and that gets updated nonstop every day. But the thing about working from home is as we utilize different types of devices and more devices and your own devices versus a company device that I may be able to put a protection tool on, is that bad guys come in, they overtake that machine, and then they use that machine to do further exploits. And some of the blocks that I may have put in my organization, like blocking known traffic from countries where I don't do business. So for example, Iran is a large cyber attack community. So I may choose to block all traffic from Iran if I don't do business with Iran. Some companies do that. But if a bad guy, say from that region, happens to take over someone else's computer from home, they're now looking like that traffic is coming from internal, say inside the US. So I'm not going to block that traffic, but it's still potentially malicious and bad traffic. We refer to that as grandma's computer. And maybe that's a little mean, but the point is if you're not up to date on your patches and keeping things safe and secure, then you're opening up that door. You're leaving that window unlocked, or your back door unlocked for that bad guy to get in. On top of that, it's not just enough to protect the device. It's really important to make sure that your home Wi-Fi network that you're working off of is secured properly, that you change the default password that came with your Comcast service or your Xfinity service. Especially now where we have multiple devices in our homes that are using our Wi-Fi. I personally have separate Wi-Fi networks set up. I have a guest network. I have a network for my IoT devices, so my refrigerator, my smart TV, some other smart devices, and then I have one that I secure and I keep for my work devices and my personal computers. Now that's a little extreme and maybe not everybody wants to do those type of measures, but at least making sure your home Wi-Fi network is up to date and patched and those passwords are changed and only you know those passwords. And I would highly suggest having a guest Wi-Fi so that when people come over, they're connecting to the guest Wi-Fi and you don't have to tell them your other password, right? Because again, they may, who knows? It's just better securely to do that at home. Again, there's just some more tips we've already talked about, making sure you check email addresses carefully, consider the use of banners, like I said, that raise that awareness, and always using multi-factor authentication. It's a good idea to use multi-factor authentication in your daily life as well. You can set up on your Yahoo Mail and your Google Mail now, they all have the ability to use multi-factor. Turn that on. Protect yourself not just from a work standpoint and a professional standpoint, but from a personal standpoint as well. We can do all these things in both instances, both at work and at home.
Okay, Michelle, next slide, please. So some of you may already know about this website called VirusTotal.com, and what you can do on this website, and it's very, very simple. It's very, very plain. It just has this bar that you can cut and paste website addresses into. If you get a link in an email or someone sends you something in a text and you think it's suspicious, you just copy the link and you paste it onto this website, and it will do a security check, and then it will give you back whether this appears to be a legit website or not. And then obviously you're saying, well, who are these VirusTotal people? It's a website that's put out by Google's parent company. So it's a pretty legit website. And if you really just go and try it and you paste just any website in there and you see all of the searches that it's performing, it's a pretty thorough check. I'm not sure you would want to do this with every single link that you get, but in terms of something that you can send out to your employees and say, hey, listen, I attended this webinar today. We've got to really be careful about email addresses and checking those and checking links before we click on things. Here is a free way to do that they can just open another tab in their browser, paste it in there, and go forward from there. Michelle, next slide. So we're not just working from home. Obviously, a lot of people are going to be working in Starbucks or on public Wi-Fi when they go out. And you probably do this as well. When we were traveling around just a week or two ago, we were using airport, hotel, what have you, public Wi-Fi. I want to explain to you, I want to show to you the risks of using public Wi-Fi, and then we're going to show you how you can protect yourselves and, again, your employees when they're considering using public Wi-Fi. Generally speaking, I would tell you, I know it's very tempting, but unless you have some protection, I would not be using public Wi-Fi just because of the risks that are out there, one of which I'm about to show you. Michelle, next slide. Before we get into this, on the right-hand side of your screen, if it looks like mine, there's a little chat area, and we're going to probably stop in about 5-6 minutes and then take some questions. If you have questions that you want to send via chat now and sort of stack them up, we can use that last 5 or 10 minutes of our presentation to address those. So if you have some questions in mind, you're welcome to go ahead and send those, and then we'll pick up immediately with that when we finish up here. Anyhow, I don't know if you've ever seen this symbol before. It kind of looks like SpongeBob is having a party at his house, but it's not quite that entertaining. This is what's called a pineapple. Michelle, next slide. And a pineapple is a little device that does what's called a man-in-the-middle attack. And essentially what they're trying to do is get between you and the network that you're trying to access. Michelle, next slide. So if you think about it this way, on the left-hand side of your screen, you're the client, you're using a device, laptop, iPhone, iPad, whatever it may be, and you're trying to get onto the server, let's say get onto the Starbucks Wi-Fi. What really is happening is the man in the middle, so now you're looking at the right-hand side of your screen, is getting in between you and what you're trying to connect to, again, whether it's a hotel or an airport Wi-Fi. Michelle, next slide. A pineapple device looks like this, and it is very small. Next slide. And it's designed to be portable. You wouldn't necessarily carry it around like that because it's pretty clear what you're carrying. But when you, Michelle, go to the next slide. If you go into, again, a coffee shop or what have you, everyone is connected. You don't know if there's someone who's sitting there in a backpack in their pocket or what have you who has one of these devices. And I'll show you how this works. If you go to the next slide. If you have, again, iPhone, Android, whatever, a lot of times we all leave our Wi-Fi on so that it connects when you get home, it connects when you get to the office, and your phone is constantly out there searching when your Wi-Fi antenna is on, trying to see if it can find any network that it's found before. And so it's saying, hey, airport, are you out there? Hey, Starbucks, are you out there? Anywhere where you've connected before, it's trying to find where it is so that when you pick up your phone, boom, you're automatically connected. Next slide. So what the pineapple device does is it says, yes, hey, I am that airport that you were looking for. I am that connection that you've already made. And your phone readily connects to it because, again, that's what it's designed to do, to be very convenient for you. That person with the pineapple is already connected to, say, again, we'll pick on Starbucks, is already connected to Starbucks. So you think you're connecting to Starbucks, you're actually connecting to them, and they get in the middle, hence the man in the middle attack. Next slide. So once they've got in the middle And so you've connected to them, they've connected to the internet sort of for you. All of your information that you're now putting through this public Wi-Fi is going through the man in the middle. And they can see everything. So when you're typing in passwords or your phone is automatically connecting, you open up mail, you hit mail, it's automatically sending your credentials out. They're seeing and vacuuming up everything and basically saving the entire communication or conversation that's taking place. Michelle, next slide. So the man in the middle is seeing this on their device. They've got the uptime, they see how many people are connected, they see what browsers you're using. They're able to use all of these tabs on the left to, again, just download and suck up information and see what's going on. So I mean, it's an amazing amount of data that they're able to get. Your thought would be, well, no one's really using these devices. These things are rare, they're expensive, they're only for sort of really skilled hackers. Michelle, next slide. But the reality is these things, the small version costs $100 and the more sophisticated version costs $200. And these are accessible on the internet. They're illegal to use because they're essentially wiretapping, but they're not illegal to buy. There are legitimate uses for these, but the broad concern is that they're being used in the manner that I've just discussed. And so this is a very real concern in terms of, are people getting hacked, and is this something that you need to think about when you go out and you're using public Wi-Fi? So what's the solution? Michelle, next slide. There's something called VPN, and you've probably heard about it, and you may or may not completely understand what it is. I'm going to show you how it works in one example. Again, just because of our constraints in time, we can't get too far into this, but I just want to show you one example as to how easy this is to use. Next slide. So the idea is that you're going to create a tunnel between you and the internet. So even though you're going to be logging on to a public Wi-Fi, it's going to be end-to-end encrypted so that the hacker isn't going to be able to get that information. So even if you did, for example, fall for this, what they're going to see is just going to be, garbage. They're not going to be able to actually legitimately get any information that you're transmitting. Next slide. Let me go over this one real quick. Again, we're just suggesting that you don't use public Wi-Fi without some sort of protection. Employees should have a VPN access on their device. Employers, you should use something like Citrix or some other way to get onto your system so that it's automatic. And then the multi-factor authentication would be another way to prevent this. Next slide. So the question is, how easy is it to use something like VPN? And again, I think a lot of people talk about it, they've heard about it, but they really don't know how to use this on their computer or on their phone or what have you. Michelle, next slide. I use, and I'm not showing for these folks, but I'm just telling you, here's what I use, and you're welcome to go try it or try something else, but I use this one called PIAA. And so what you do is you install this app on your, in this case, an iPhone device. And then next slide. I go and I log on to the Wi-Fi that I want to log into, and then I go back to the main page, which is the next slide, Michelle. And I hit the, I tap on the application, and then it pulls up the next slide. And so I see this is now the screen. This is the app, and it's very, very complicated, as you can see. And so this is the really tough part. There's a big red button in the middle of my screen, and so I press it. And Michelle, next slide. The app turns green. Next slide. And now mentally, if you can kind of picture this, I've just created that tunnel between me and wherever I'm trying to go on the internet, whether it be my mail, whether it be social media, whether it be website, what have you. I'm now in that tunnel. That is the VPN, okay? And so for the rest of the session that I'm on that Wi-Fi, I can do it at home, I can do it in the airport. I can do it on any sort of public Wi-Fi. I have now protected myself and the content that I'm sharing across the internet. This is application. It does cost money. I think I pay about $30 for an entire year. I put it on this device. I put it on my desktop, on my laptop, and I put it on my iPad. And it is as simple as that. Now, obviously, your communication is slowed down a little bit, but it is a fairly small price to pay if you're moving around and you need to protect your client information and your customer information and your own information. Michelle, next slide, please. So let's give you a couple of ideas and some things that you can use right now. Next slide, please. Our general message, particularly now, is don't be a COVIDiot, and that is don't overreact to, again, the vector that thieves are using is some sort of urgency. Something's different here. There's some reason, there's some compulsion for you to click or respond or buy or what have you. Don't fall for that right now. And these are a couple of examples that I've seen just in the news. One, there was this fake Fox News website that is a link that's been going around that is saying, oh, well, there's a vaccine that has been homemade to cure the coronavirus. That's obviously fake. Spammer messages like the ones you see in the middle of your screen, again, hey, free samples or get a face mask or anything that's going to prompt someone to impulsively respond, that is, again, a hallmark that this is a scam. And then finally, there was one of these TV ministers who was claiming that if he can heal people by touching the TV screen. We just have to educate ourselves and educate our employees. Next slide. Christine?
Sure. So here are just some basic tips. A lot of these we've already gone over. One is make sure you're providing your employees with some basic security knowledge. Whenever I write a memo or some information or do some sort of training, I always try to remind people and give them hints too, just like I said, on how to protect themselves, not only when they're at work, but in their daily lives as well, because then it hits home a little bit more. It reminds them of what's in it for them. Protect yourself using VPN, as Christopher just went over and talked about. There are other security protection tools to think about, especially if you're running an organization. You want to make sure you have good endpoint protection. I'd really suggest something a little bit beyond antivirus if you can. There's a lot of different types of endpoint detection tools that are now what we call advanced endpoint detection tools. They have day one exploit capabilities to detect and stop those immediately and eradicate them. Some even have the ability to do a rollback from 3 seconds or 5 seconds prior to, say, a ransomware event. So that's a really good tool to have, although a lot of these are not cheap. You want to make sure your company has a good firewall infrastructure to protect any of those critical pieces of data or systems that are not cloud type of SaaS applications. You want to be making sure that you're using encryption, encrypting emails where possible when you're sending those outside of your organization. A lot of email tools have out of the box free encryption capabilities. You just need to find out how to utilize those and make sure you're educating your employees on how to use those depending upon which email application you use in your organization. So definitely inform people of those. Again, make sure that people understand passwords, good passwords, strong passwords, and what that looks like. Use multi-factor authentication where possible. Encourage secure and approved cloud applications. Instead of trying to do everything yourselves, there's a lot of really good cloud applications out there that do a lot around security and make sure that their environments are secure. But make sure you're reading those terms and conditions. You understand that in some of them you need an enterprise license if you're going to use them in order to protect your data. So just make sure you're looking at it not only from the security protection side, like, is this a well-known application? Is it backed by somebody like a Google and Amazon, and Azure or Microsoft, but also looking at things like, can I use it for business or do I need to buy a license for it? Make sure that you're backing up company data in the right way, in a way that in case somebody stores something locally on their machine and then their machine gets impacted and ransomed, that you have a way to get to that data, that it's not just living in a single source. Avoid or block the usage of USB sticks, especially, you know, we love to take our data on the go, but a lot of times people don't realize a lot of times those are unencrypted. You can buy encrypted ones. If you're going to use a USB stick, make sure it's encrypted. But that's another way that guys infiltrate systems. They leave around USBs, they're lying around, people pick them up, and they're like, oh, okay. And they stick it in their machine and therefore infecting their device. And just overall, have a clear plan about how you're going to approach cybersecurity, especially in a remote working world that we're in now, especially with the heightened risks that are out there and the heightened exploits. There's the NIST framework, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology, to have a really comprehensive framework on how to implement strong cybersecurity. Now, most organizations do not need to go to the letter of the law of NIST, as it is quite intensive to do so. However, I love that they have what they call the cyber life cycle. It's easy to remember. There's 5 parts to it. It's identify, protect, detect, respond, recover. So you need to make sure your plan includes how you're going to address all 5 areas and how you're going to ensure you have coverage, how you're going to identify what risks pose a threat to your organization, how are you going to protect against those, how are you going to detect when something might be going wrong, how are you going to respond in the event that something does go wrong, and then how are you going to recover from it as quickly as possible. So if you just focus and have a program around those 5 key areas, then it helps coordinate and make that a doable thing. Also, one last tip, right now, especially with the world in the way that it is, there are a lot of really well-known, reputable cybersecurity vendors out there who are offering their tools, whether it be cloud VPN, whether it be advanced endpoint detection, whether it be, and a lot of them are very easy to actually spin up. You'd be amazed, especially if you are already in a infrastructure as a service, a cloud. So if you do need a server, you can spin up a virtual machine rather quickly. If you're living in an Azure or GCP, a Google cloud or an Amazon Web Services type of environment, and you have someone who can spin up a VM for you, a virtual machine, you can deploy some of these cyber tools very quickly, and a lot of them are offering them free for like the next 6 months. So it gives you a capability to test them out, secure yourself, and it's also no cost other than the cost to set it up and get it going. That may not be easy for a lot of smaller organizations, but see what's out there. Also, there's things like Malwarebytes that you can inform users. It's another very, just like VirusTotal, it's out there. They have a lot of free home editions. A really good tool to see if your machine is infected with anything and can help clean it up. So those are just some tips, and I hope those help.
Okay, we're going to wrap this up real quick. Michelle, next slide. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to give you 2 articles that I wrote for the Palm Beach Bar Association. You can take a look at these online. If you just search for the title of these, maybe we'll see if we can get the chamber to put up a link somewhere. You can also just Google my name and you'll ultimately be able to find these articles on our website. The first one, and again, these are 1-page articles. And the first one that I'm showing you is this protect the privacy of your iOS 13 device. So this is your iPad and your iPhone. This is just 1 page. And all you do is you just go through each of the paragraphs and it talks about, is Apple following you? Is Google following you? Are your text messages actually going where they're supposed to be going? It takes about 10 minutes and you can walk through this with your phone and just make sure that the settings on your device are as secure as you need them to be. Next slide. And then same thing, different article, is same type of idea, except this is for your PCs. And you go through and you're just making sure, some of them are settings, some of them are broader questions about encrypting drives. Just walk through all of these to make sure that your device is set up in a secure way. These articles are free. They take about 10 minutes to read. And you can send a PDF copy to your employees to make sure their devices are secure. The only, I guess, caveat I would say is if you're using your employer's computer, just make sure that what you're changing is consistent with what your IT people want you to be doing. But generally speaking, these are safe, reversible steps that you can take, but things that you need to have in place to make sure that your mobile device and your laptop or your desktop are secure. Last slide. And then just real quickly, just make sure everybody is also mentally and physically healthy. We gave a list here of Baptist Health has some online classes. Aside from being cyber secure, just make sure everybody is healthy and safe and those kinds of things. Michelle? Okay.
Christine and Christopher, thank you so much. I have one question and 3 things to say before I share the question, and we'll get everyone off by 10 o'clock because I'm so they can get to their next meeting. One is I really appreciate the practicality of your presentation. I am, for one, I think the best $30 I could spend. I did not know about the PIAA VPN for my iPhone, so thank you for that. The second thing, which it actually is related to our question, avoiding and blocking USB usage. I'm guilty of that, trying to charge my phone, connecting it to my work computer. If I don't have the plug part, I bet a lot of us do that. So thank you for that. One more thing, and then I'll ask the question. I wanted everybody in the call to know we do have a cybersecurity companies list. And believe it or not, if you look at the list, it's on our website. We added it last Friday because of to support this webinar and also to provide resources for our chamber members who are now working virtually. And what's interesting to me about the list is we have companies who are chamber members here in Palm Beach County through our chamber that are from all over the country, Michigan, California, I guess the usual suspects, New York, Massachusetts. So please do take a look at that list. I'm glad I will send everyone a link to that list, and I'd like to send everyone a link to your articles, Christopher. And so I think we have about 2 minutes. I'd like to ask the question that was sent to me, and okay, so here's the question. Please explain the dangers of USB usage. That's the first question. I actually have a second question. Can you please elaborate on that?
Yeah, so it's more about the USB sticks. Ironically, not long ago, there was a cybersecurity conference that was attended, and one of the vendors, who was a cybersecurity vendor, handed out USB sticks as their swag. Well, unbeknownst to them, somehow during the manufacturing process or somehow somebody got a hold of them and loaded all of them with a virus. So a cybersecurity company handed out USB sticks that then people went back, cybersecurity professionals, put them in their machines to use them as storage devices and infected their own machines. So it's just another way that bad guys get out there. We run these type of tests all the time. We put USB sticks just lying around the office. We see how many people just pick them up and stick them in their machine thinking, oh, hey, free USB stick. I can use this to store data. And they come preloaded with viruses. So it's less about using it to charge your phone, although if your phone, especially certain operating systems of phones, are more susceptible to viruses and such, like Android devices, I'm gonna be honest, they really are. If it has a virus, you could then spread it, just like a human virus, right? So you need to be very careful in what you put and connect to your device, just as we need to be protective as we go out and touch things in the world.
Oh, thank you for clarifying, Christine. That was an excellent, very clear explanation and a great story. So, or maybe not a great story, tale of woe, right? So thank you for sharing that. or a warning story. So I want to encourage or welcome people that it's 9:59 that, you know, need to get off the call by 10. Feel free. I do have one more question if people would like to stay, and if Christine and Christopher could indulge me for one more minute. The second question is statement-question. Sometimes the danger is not about closing links within emails. Could you address the risk of opening attachments, even those that come from people that we may know?
Yes, exactly. That's very true as well. Sometimes viruses or malware or other things will come in, or remote code executions will actually be written inside a file. So again, don't open something that you don't know. Again, if somebody's overtaken, that's why I said endpoint detection tools, not just antivirus anymore. I'm sorry, I just don't think antivirus is enough. You need a sophisticated endpoint detection tool that's going to know that that is a malicious file and block it. Again, also using your email protections that come out of the box. Like I said, the majority of email systems that people use, whether it's Office 365, whether it's Google Mail, whether it's Yahoo Mail, whatever the mail is, a lot of them also do have attachment capabilities to review files before they're delivered to make sure that they don't have any known bad code included in those files. So definitely work with your IT department to see what can be turned on there so that you don't even deliver anything that's bad. That's what we want to do in IT. We want to stop it before it ever even gets delivered so that the end user doesn't have to think about it. So look into those. They're existing out there. They're built into every mail system that's out there. So deploy what you can. That again gets back to the identify, protect, detect, respond, recover. That's in the protection. Whatever protections you can roll out that come in the tools that you're using, roll those out.
Thank you so much, Christine. I appreciate that. That was a very clear answer, and I think a very good point for people to think about what you're suggesting, that they really need to be proactive and look at getting a sophisticated endpoint protection tool, which is something I bet a lot of us don't think about or maybe weren't aware of. So thank you so much for that. I want to just thank Christopher and Christine. For everyone on the call, we asked them to do the seminar last week because we wanted to get this up quick and running, and I can't believe how quickly you guys moved. I'm in awe. I want to say thank you on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce of the Palm Beaches for an excellent presentation and very practical tools, very thoughtful, timely, of course, and appreciated for how fast you were able to pull this together and present it in such a professional way. Thank you. For everyone on the call, thank you so much for joining. We do hope you stay healthy and safe, and please feel free to reach out to me. We did record, just so everybody knows, we did record this, and I think I can send the link. So if anyone would like it, please email me at msoccer@palmbeaches.org. I'm on our website, and I hope everybody has a peaceful day. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.